And so game week 34 is just about in the books, and it has been an eye-opening revelation for a lot of people. A lot of people are starting to see beyond the veil. But for me, my team, honestly, it started off looking really good. But again, ultimately, I have taken yet another hide in this game. He's trying to beat me down, but on this occasion, it has failed because... And those 2 points I've just made, they all link in together because despite my team underperforming yet again, I have been filled with a renewed sense of hope, with a renewed sense of optimism about the future. And the question has been in the air in the last couple of weeks, am I going to continue next season? And right now, I'm thinking I am. Right now, I'm thinking the game needs people like me, people who will, and maybe this is egotistical, we are all creatures of ego. Why else would I be walking through this lovely park on a Sunday morning with a camera pointing at my face? I cannot deny there's some ego. And of course there's some ego in the sense of despondency I've felt recently with regards, my outcomes in the game. But I am leaning towards playing one more season, at least one more season. Because despite my team, I'll bring it up now, despite my team scoring only 30 points so far, a really poor score. It didn't feel like a poor score. It felt like a victory for your old pal, the FPL Nightmare. And I'll tell you why. I should have actually brought my team up on my phone before I started recording. But as I got out, it started raining, and I thought, if that's anything that is a metaphor for my season, it's the fact that in a week of glorious sunshine, I come out and it starts raining on me. It's like that old Travis song. Why does it always rain on me? Well, it's because I walk out under the clouds when I could find some shelter. Sometimes it rains on us, but sometimes we search for the rain, and we have to admit that about ourselves if we want to develop in life and improve. So, here's my team. 8 players played so far. I have Kelleher still to play. Gabriel, 8 points. Virgil, 4 points. Mukiele, 0 points. The best 0-pointer of this season. Bruno Fernandes, captain, still to play. Wilson, 2 points. Rogers, 2 points. Dewsbury Hall with an 8-pointer. Watkins, 2 points. Thiago, still to play. And Kai Havertz with 4 points. And it's those 2 players, Kai Havertz and Dewsbury Hall, that have given me this hope. It is those 2 players that have given me this optimism that perhaps I don't need the solvers after all, that perhaps I can take on those algorithm acolytes and emerge triumphant. And of course, I haven't emerged triumphant this week. It's been a bit of the solvers have had their moments with Pedro Porro's 9-pointer, a good example. But this is the week that the differentials fought back. This is the week, the game week 34 is the game week that the alternatives put up a fight, gave a case for the free thinkers, for the people who look to play the game with the heart. And maybe Solio's got more points, but it feels like a week where the soul has won in FPL. And I'll look at it. And I look at my team, and it's been disappointing. I can't deny it. Obviously, Mukiele, best 0-pointer of the season. It was a delight seeing Nottingham Forest thrash Sunderland 5-0 at the Stadium of Light. If only my beloved Newcastle could do the same, or even show some sort of fight at all. But young Elliot Anderson, the week he's had with his beloved mother passing away, to end it with a goal at the Stadium of Light for the Geordie Maradona. What a lovely story. The sort of story that football regularly throws up in a strange way, regularly throws up these sorts of stories, but every time it warms the heart, and it certainly warmed the heart on Friday night. But what was the big story from that game? Morgan Gibbs-White. In the week where so many people free hit, why did nobody have Morgan Gibbs-White? Well, I can tell you for why. It's because the solver told them all to get Xavi Simons. Let's get Xavi Simons. Let's not get Morgan Gibbs-White. That's points tracing. But let's get Xavi Simons because he scored a goal and got an assist last week. No, you see, this points tracing theory only ever applies if the solver says so. And I have been on one with these solvers, but they have bullied me this season, these solvers. And this week feels like the fight back. This week feels like something has awoken in me. And a lot of it is the support of you, the viewer. A lot of it is the support. I've talked through my emotions quite openly about the game, about the way the game is going, about the way the game will probably be next season unless serious changes are made to these DEFCONs, to the solvers. The game should be working to minimise the threat of the solvers, to minimise the power of the solvers. But it doesn't. And that, to me, that is a problem. That is a problem. And you can see why people get frustrated when these rule changes come in that aid the solvers, because the FPL cartel doesn't exist. But sometimes people need to think about how things look. And, when you've got these changes that make life easier for people who, earn a living from the game, it's the optics. The optics have to change to prevent the ire of, admittedly, a small portion of the fan base, a small portion of the player base. But that will grow. That ire will grow if again next season we are tracing people getting in the way of passes rather than people playing the killer pass. People falling over and getting hit by shots rather than people hitting the net with shots. This is what the game is about. It is the fantasy Premier League, not the fucking pragmatic league, Come on now. We choose what FPL stands for. And it was really brought into light this week. Morgan Gibbs-White, great example. Because you can look at Twitter yourself if you really want to go to that cesspit. Although I will say the FPL corner of Twitter is a lot better than the rest of the site on the whole. Still infected with some of the same problems, but on the whole it is better. A lot more supportive, a lot more of a community. But I'm looking through it and I'm watching it all week. Everyone start off, free hit. Let's look at the free hit draft. Oh, am I crazy? Because I'm going with Solanke up front. 1 goal in 9 games before yesterday. Am I crazy because I'm going with Pedro Porro and Danso in defence? Of course, Spurs, do they even keep clean sheets? But suddenly, every big name saying these are the players. And you think, well, maybe it is just Wolves, but Wolves are doing all right. Spurs aren't. Danso. They all had Danso. They're all like, let's get Danso in. Let's get the play for a clean sheet from a team that doesn't concede that. For a team that doesn't keep clean sheets, who have just brought in an attacking manager, let's go for a double defence. Danso. Until, funnily enough, I think it was Thursday afternoon. And then there was a little update to FPL Review. And instead of recommending Danso, it started recommending Xavi Simons as the third player. And then within an hour or two, suddenly you see all the free hitters, not all of them, but a lot of them, suddenly sharing the screenshot. Ooh, am I crazy for going with Porro, Simons, Solanke? Am I crazy? Is this a wild move? Well, of course it isn't a wild move because you're just doing what Solver says. The Solver changed the picture and then everybody else, not everybody, but a lot of them jumped on it and then presented it as some sort of maverick move, some free thinker move. It's not free thinking at all. And this is the problem. Once Once you know how the sausage is made, it just doesn't taste so nice. Once you know how the hot dog is made, you realise it's going to leave you with a bit of an empty feeling. And that's why this week was so good. That's why this week was a week where the solvers took a bit of a kicking, because none of them recommended Gibbs White, goal and an assist. And it's like, ooh, you know, why haven't you gone for Gibbs White? Form of his life. Oh, yeah, but Spurs fighting relegation, so are Forest. Oh, yeah, but Simmons looking liberated under a new manager, so was Gibbs White, with a much firmer stack of evidence behind him. And look, you can't expect everybody to go for him. You can't expect everybody to go for Gibbs White unless Solver says, but for so few to go for him is really bizarre, given the performance, given these are meant to be analytical managers. And really, like, this is the thing. You call yourself an analytical manager. It's a posh word for an outsourcing manager. You're outsourcing your decisions to these programmes. Why did nobody have Dewsbury Hall? I had Dewsbury Hall. And it wasn't just a gamble. It wasn't just, oh, I need to find someone different to keep the content interesting. You know, it popped into my head while I was talking through my team. And then what happened? I looked it up. And of the midfielders that played this weekend, obviously Semenyo is top. Of the midfielders playing this weekend, Dewsbury Hall is the 4th highest points per game from all of them. Over the course of the entire season, the 4th highest points per game of all midfielders that played this weekend. And who was Dewsbury Hall playing? Oh, he's playing a team 4th from bottom. A team that aren't keeping clean sheets. So why is nobody going for him? Oh, it doesn't have the set pieces. Oh, it doesn't have the penalties. Oh, Solver says no. And then it's like, come on. Why aren't you taking these chances? Why aren't you looking at these players? Why aren't you being analytical when you call yourself an analytical manager? These are the questions people need to ask themselves. Is it analytical to outsource the decisions? Because for me, Dewsbury Hall was an analytical pick. For me, Dewsbury Hall was the analytical choice because I ran the analysis of myself. I looked at the data, I looked at the stats, I looked at the fixture, and I brought in the attacking midfielder that got the goal. Great stuff. And this is where the hope comes from. You know, the strikers, it comes back again at the same point. These analytical managers who you know, make their identity around being focused on data, on facts, on logic, went for a striker with 1 goal in 9 games. I don't think he even has penalties, so they can't even use the old DCL excuse. 1 goal in 9 games. Woeful striker. Of course, Eddie Howe seems to want him for Newcastle, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. They went for Solanke, 1 goal, 9 games. Why? Solver says so. The Solver says Solanke, oh, he's playing Wolves. Wolves have been a lot better defensively. You know, and you could say, yeah, they got smashed beforehand. Are you going to start targeting Sunderland now? Because surely, if that's the reasoning, that's what you have to do. Let's target the team that just got smashed. Well, Sunderland just got smashed at home. Let's see where they go. These analytical managers, the outsourcers. And I know people, you know, people might get a bit offended. People might say, why are you going? I'm not going for anyone in particular. I'm not even criticising these people. There's a lot of reasons to go to use the solvers. And I tried to get Kanji to get Gary to open up about it on the pubcast last night because, you know, it is bothering Gary. People call him Gary View. People say, oh, all he ever does is press the button and let the solver pick the team for him. And, you know, I mean, fair enough, he ended up, I don't think he actually ended up with triple Spurs. So there you go. There is a defence for Gary from the pubcast, the landlord. he made his own decision. Yeah, fair enough, he got Harry Wilson and he didn't out, but he didn't out off Gary's own thinking. People say Gary only uses the solver because he's, you know, he can't be asked to watch football. Look, let's be real about football in England. It costs you hundreds of pounds a month to be able to watch every game. Like, the D Unit, Trigger, you know, even Kanji, they live abroad. They all have access to the Premier League in the way that us Brits just do not, which again is bizarre. It's a bizarre way for the Premier League to do it, in my opinion. But to criticise someone for not being able to pass the eye test, for, oh, you're not applying the eye test. Well, I mean, you know, what are you asking the bloke to do? The university lecturer to do? Break the law? Get a fire stick in, you know? Watch all the games unlawfully? Is that what you're saying you have to do? In order to be an effective FPL manager in this country, you should break the law? Is that what people are saying? That's a bit harsh on Gary, don't you think? His livelihood to consider. You know, the eye test. People talk about the solvers being pay to play, pay to win. The eye test is the biggest pay to win in FPL when it comes to certainly in Britain, because the cost of watching live football is exorbitant. It is ridiculous. And we are in a cost of living crisis. And, you know, everything goes up. Wages stay the same. Wages drop. Everything goes up. But the size of things gets smaller. You know, oh, there's been a bit of trouble in the Middle East. Let's put the energy bills up through the roof. But when the trouble in the Middle East is sorted and the wholesale prices come down, our prices stay the same. It's all a con. Economics is a con. Capitalism is a con, because it's all about rinsing people. And look, I like rinsing Gary as much as anyone. But let's be real. You can't ask him to make his decisions on the eye test, because it's a very classist argument, because a lot of the working class can't afford the eye test. I can't afford the eye test. So what a lot of people do is use programs like FPL Review to plug the gaps. You know, we can all look at the XG data. We can all look at the, you know, expected assist data, expected goals conceded data. We can all watch Match of the Day. But Match of the Day is just highlights. It's just a narrow, whatever the director wants to present, the narrative of that game. And it's not real, you know. It is just not real. Everybody will know when they've watched their team play a game and they've dominated, and then the Match of the Day edit it so the big six team have been on top the whole time. We've all got our own experience of that happening. We all know the paint narratives. And so people use programs like solvers, like Review, to plug the gaps. And also to save time. Because, like I say, once you know that a lot of the content you're going to watch on YouTube, FPL content, to try and plug those gaps, why would you watch 5 hours of FPL content a week to plug the gaps when you can just press one button and see what they're all going to say in 5 seconds? You know, time is limited. And let's face it, a lot of people that play this game are getting older. I'm in my early 40s now. Whenever I say that, there's always some little scrote in the comment that says, early 40s, you look more like 50. Well, lived a hard life, pal. You know? But you're not going to shame me from keeping this ugly mug off the camera. You know, look at the state of my hair. Not been doing all these, look at that, big baldy bunts. All these 24-hour shifts this week. Just finished my 4th in 7 days. Haven't shaved my head. You know, I've had limited time at home. I'm not going to waste it shaving my head. So you get the unshaven. You get the Antonio Conte before FPL Nightmare. And look, I would love to go to Turkey and get the long flowing locks. I would, if I could afford it, I would come out like that picture of Shearer. Is there a plan in place for when, if Alan Shearer shows up with a long flowing head of hair? That's what I would be looking like if I could afford to go to Turkey for the transplant, unashamedly, you know? But I can't afford it. And this is the thing people don't tell you about male pattern baldness. It's not losing your hair that's the issue. You know, it's the fact that you don't lose all of it. Look at this, look at that. Wouldn't be asked if my head was all completely bald, John Joe Shelby. It's the patches that do your head in. Because that, if it was all gone, then I wouldn't have to shave my head all the time. I wouldn't have to take a razor blade to my skull to look half decent. Oh, you don't even look half decent, Nightmare. Calm it down, calm it down. It's Sunday morning. You know? But like, if I had like a full head of hair, great. I can just like go for this scruffy bedhead look or whatever you. If I had no hair, great. I don't even have to think about it. These patches, this halfway house, this is the most frustrating period. If I was offered to wake up with no hair on my head at all, I would take it in a heartbeat. And maybe this is, to tie it all back to FPL, this is maybe where I've been going wrong this season. I've been this halfway house, flirting with the solvers, flirting with different strategies, never fully committing to one. And look, I have had a bad season. I think I'm almost 200 points behind Nick Trigg. But do you know what it is? I actually feel probably more confident now about next season than the vast majority of people. Because this has been a season of discovery. This has been a season of identity. Identity is so important. And in this season, me first as like a kind of mainstream YouTube, and like in the sense that last season I was doing very niche content for my mini league. This season it's more about the game in general. Got a bigger audience, very appreciated. I don't even think I spoke about the appreciation earlier when I was trying to. You know, I've had so many nice comments, so many supportive comments. It's not about your rank. It's about the way you talk. It's about the way you articulate your thoughts about the game, about everything else. You know, don't leave YouTube because we'll miss you. Like, I'm a nobody, yeah. I'm a nobody that has not had the easiest of life and has not felt accepted by society in many ways for many reasons, mainly because ever since I was a teenager, I've kind of worked to be a bit of an outcast, you know? And part of that is reflecting the emotional turmoil I was going through as a teenager. And part of it is, you know, I just don't really understand the way the world works. Like, I understand how it works. I just don't understand why it works that way. Like capitalism, like the way that, you know, energy prices go up and then the wholesale prices come down, but our prices stay the same until the next time. It's all a con. And I can see that. And that's what I don't understand. I feel like an outcast in the world because I can see this sort of stuff and I just don't understand why others don't. But I mean, this is not a politics thing, and I have worked very hard not to discuss politics. But when we're talking about the solvers, there is a classist aspect to it in some ways, because not everybody can afford the eye test. Not everyone can afford, you know, people can't afford to spend hours watching content because some of them are on the building sites. Some of them are working 12, 14-hour days to earn a living, to pay these exorbitant things. And then they don't want to spend all the spare time watching FPL content just to have a chance. You know, they don't want to spend all the time doing all this research into statistics and data for every single player to try and make the best choice when there's a program, 2 or 3 programs now, that you can press a button and you can see all this data, all this information. And the problem is too many people abuse it. They abuse these programs and they stop thinking for themselves. And, last week I said the solvers have won. And I think the solvers have won this season. The DEFCONs, the 5 free transfers, it's all helped them. But I actually think next season it's going to go the other way. Because I think I just a feeling that a season like this, which kind of reinforces all the criticisms about how solvers are ruining the game, it makes people overconfident. I've seen it through the League of Gentlemen, my old mini league. Still actually in it, to be fair. I've just not really paid any attention. Mainly because the leader of it is in the Nightmares Dreamers mini league, so I can just follow it through there. If I'm not winning it, then it doesn't really matter. But, and I've seen it in that league because, the League of Gentlemen, my old mini league, has been going 14, 15, 16 years now. Only one person has ever won it back-to-back seasons. And there's a lot of things you could prescribe to that. There's a lot of ways you could look at that, but the way I look at it is that it's actually really hard in this game. If you have a good season, it's really hard to adapt to the next one. And look, some people are better at stuff like that than others. Can't deny that. And that's fair enough to them. There will always be people better at the game than you. There will always be people better at adapting than you. But if you have a good season, it's so hard to play differently the next season because you trust what brought you to the dance. And we're seeing that with Eddie Howe at Newcastle. He's had all this success. And look, you can say what you want. Newcastle getting 2 Champions League campaigns and the trophy, another final. That is success for Newcastle. We are not an elite club. We are, by any sporting metric, barely even a big club. And I've got no problem saying that. And if any Newcastle fans out there have issue with it, then tough. Deal with the facts. We are a club that every 10 to 15 years has a few good seasons. Historically, a mid-table club. That's just the facts. And, Eddie Howe has had that good few years, and now it is looking very much like Bournemouth. They finished 14th the year before Howe went down, but the problems, the issues were there. And that's what's happening with Newcastle. You see it yesterday. He's not played Voltemada for weeks. Voltemada comes on, plays the best pass. Wissa, not played barely anything. And not got the sharpness to finish the chance. Eddie Howe's finished at Newcastle. I do believe that because he's not going to win the crowd back. And it's because he won't adapt. He won't adapt his strategy. Even yesterday, what did he do with the old favourites? Let's drop Lewis Hall for Dan Burn at left back. What's that all about? He's a 33, 34-year-old centre-half. Lewis Hall's been our player of the season. And it's really frustrating as a fan to see stuff like that when you know that Lewis Hall, in the last 6 games against Arsenal, Newcastle without Lewis Hall have lost 3 and conceded 7 goals. Scored, I think, twice. In the 3 games they've played Arsenal with Lewis Hall, they've won all 3. They haven't even conceded a goal. Oh, we need to get Dan Burn in for the defensive duties, to defend set pieces. Well, we went and conceded from a set piece, so it's all nonsense. I think Eddie Howe's gone. I think Eddie Howe knows he's gone. And I think he's just playing his pals. Jacob Murphy, what's he doing in the team? Oh, we can't play Voltemada because he doesn't run about enough. Well, the week before, Jacob Murphy just let Truffert run 50 yards, unimpeded, didn't even attempt to defend the winning goal. Straight back in the team. And it's because people won't adapt. People won't change. Why isn't Voltemada playing? Well, he doesn't fit Eddie Howe's strategy. It doesn't fit Eddie Howe's ethos on the game. It doesn't fit Eddie Howe's what has worked for Eddie Howe in the past. And he can't change, he won't change because it has brought him the glory, so it's hard. It's only a year ago, brought him a trophy in the Champions League. Now he won't change, and it's going to cost him his job. And that's where I feel like the solvers are. That's the risk of the solvers, that's the risk. Always the risk when you have a good season in this game. That in fact, you're going to do the same next season, and it's going to go all wrong. Because the game changes, and we don't know if the game will change. You know, we don't know if the game will sort out these jokes over DEFCONs. Like, I saw last night, Tom Hadley didn't have, like, Gabriel with a defensive header. Not given a DEFCON for it. Why not? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. He speculated, maybe it wasn't a defensive enough position. A defensive enough position. What is this? How are these factors in how we score points in this game? It's just not worked. And people that have done well might say it's worked, but it hasn't. And I'm telling you now, if they stay and the 5 free transfer stays, then over the next 5 years, this game is going to become so dull because more and more people will realise you just load up on DEFCON defenders. You just load up on DEFCON midfielders. You don't make transfers. And you get the penalty takers and you watch the points come in. And when the optimum strategy for the game is to do nothing, then you don't have a game. And as more and more people click onto this, and they're going to, because you can just see how well Andy's done this year, top 300, I think. Fair play to him, you know. Obviously aided by the solver quite considerably, but the solver, you know, there's people like Gary uses the solver. He's only 60,000. Kanji uses the solver. He's about 300,000. You know, it is about how you use the solver as much as anything. But I talk so much about solvers at the minute. It does my head in, but it has been. This is the journey of the season for me. How am I to become the best FPL manager I can be? Do I need these solvers? And the conclusion, as we approach the end of the season, that I'm starting to settle on, is that I don't care if the best strategy is to use a solver. I want to beat it without using them. I want to beat it playing differently. You know, why am I on this YouTube channel? It's because I feel I have something to say. And I feel like I want to... It is about being the best manager. It is, you know, I want to be the best. I want to be the FPL World Champion. And the solver can help with that. Because, you know, you can see it's got Big Andy. We're all the way up to 300 in the world. A couple of other decisions. He could be top. Fair play, the solver can win. But you know who else can win? The non-solver users. Because it's the differences that make the difference. And I know that sounds so simple. That sounds like a year two psychology from the primary school, but it's the truth. Yesterday, the solver went Simmons, I went Dewsbury Hall, and I beat it. Doing my own research, doing my own deductions, following my own instincts. Havertz beat Solanke. Yes, he got injured. That's unlucky. Without that, I do think Solanke probably would have ended up with, 2 or 3 attacking returns. Havertz would have ended up with 2 or 3 attacking returns. It would have been a much more pronounced thing. But it beat the solver. And yes, fair enough, I brought in Ollie Watkins as my third transfer. And I went against Bowen, and that was a mistake. But it's not a 1-week play for me. And Ollie Watkins has got Spurs and Burnley next. Whereas I know Jared Bowen has Arsenal at some point, so we will see how that one plays out. Obviously, it's always nice when you get the good start. I haven't had the good start, but Havertz now an issue. And I look at my team for game week 35, and look, I was gonna do a bit of a thing about my strategy for next season, but I have rambled a bit already, so I will save that for another one. But and I look at my team. This is my team for game week 35 so far. But Keller in goal against West Ham, Gabriel against Fulham, Virgil against Man United, Hill against Palace, or Rodon against Burnley, or Mukiele against Wolves. But Fernandes against Liverpool, Wilson against Arsenal, Rodgers and Watkins versus Spurs, Dewsbury Hall, Man City, Semenyo against Everton, Thiago versus West Ham, Havertz versus Fulham if he's fit, Mukiele against Wolves, Rodon against Burnley, and Dubravka against Leeds. Now, I read out the subs because I do have the bench boost. And maybe I've shot myself in the foot a bit by getting Dewsbury Hall because he's got Man City this week. He's got Crystal Palace next week. These are the 2 weeks I had earmarked for the bench boost. But, you know, Dewsbury Hall can get a goal against Man City. He can certainly get one against Crystal Palace. So maybe game week 36 is the week for the bench boost. If I look at that, I could bring in Mukiele for Dewsbury Hall. I could bring in Rodon for Wilson. And that gives me 5 defenders with good games. And then Spurs at home for Rodgers and Watkins. Semenyo's got Everton. Thiago's got West Ham. Fernandes has Liverpool. And then there's Havertz with Fulham if he's fit. It's good. Obviously, the DEFCONs, the defenders are paying off this season, so maybe I'll just trust them. Who knows? But I've got a free transfer. Havertz is out. It's simple. Erling Haaland, you know? Sometimes you just have to think, he's got a double game week in game week 36 or game week 37. I don't know yet. Erling Haaland. But then I think, well, is it worth it? At my rank, 1.15 million or something. Is it worth Haaland when I could get Mateus Nunes, when I could get Gehi, when I could get Cherki? You know, I look at that team. If Havertz is fit, then I could do Wilson to Cherki, and I could do one of the defenders to O'Reilly, and I could bench boost next week quite happily. Obviously, I'd have Dewsbury Hall against Man City, but I don't rule him out. You know, top 5 points per game among midfielders all season. So, you know, these are the things to consider. The likelihood is I'll bring in a Man City player. Whether that's Haaland for Havertz, I don't know. It might be Mukiele out for O'Reilly or Hill out for O'Reilly. And look, I could go against O'Reilly, but it just seems a bit silly. Sometimes you have to pick your battles. A double game week, you want the best Man City triple up. Might even take a hit. Not ruling out a hit. Maybe even a -12 for old time's sake. No, I won't be doing that. But yeah, I don't know how I'm going to end this season. Right now, all I'm hoping is to get in that top million and take it from there. I did get in there for 1 week. I'm back out now. But I have the bench boost to come. And it won't be as spectacular as some of the double game weekers were. I accept that. And it is what it is. You know, I took a chance with the early wild card. It did not pay off. But I had to take the chance because I'm trying to do my best in the game. And hindsight shows I would have been better off not doing that. But you don't know that. You can't see the future in the present. And right now, I don't know what's going to happen the next 4 game weeks. I don't know what's going to happen to the game over the summer. But I do know that when it comes to August, I will be confident that I can do well next season. I will be confident that the nightmare road to redemption, it began in game week 34, going for Dewsbury Hall. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, he's an underrated player. He'd probably never get the headlines. Maybe he should be going to the World Cup. We don't know. But if he achieves nothing else in his career, he will always know that he was the player that gave me my confidence back after a year of struggling with self-belief in this game. So Kieran Dewsbury Hall, thank you very much. And thank you for watching. We will see you next time.